Hello and welcome to another video of Breaking Bad English with me, David. What is a conditional sentence? Conditional sentences are very important because they express many different things depending on the tense we use within the sentence itself. But the trigger to a conditional sentence is usually a word such as if. Now, if is the most common trigger word for conditionals, and we use it in most of them. But we can also use other words such as when in some conditional sentences, or other phrases such as soon as. But in this video, I'm going to really focus on the zero, the first, the second, and the third conditional in English. And there is one more conditional which is called a mixed conditional, but that will be in a later video. Let's look at zero conditionals. So again, zero conditional sentences. What I have here is something called a lottery ticket. A lottery ticket. You can buy these tickets and you can win millions of euros if you're lucky. But of course I actually bought that one yesterday and I didn't win anything. But that's just an example. And I want to use the idea of buying a lottery ticket in a national lottery in order to demonstrate how we use conditionals in English. So I hope you can see this sentence here I have on the board. And I will tell it to you anyway. If a person wins the lottery, he or she buys a new car. Well, that's usually true. And this is what we call a zero conditional. So what is interesting about a zero conditional is that in both the condition, and the condition in this sentence is if a person wins the lottery, that's the condition, then the result is usually or normally he or she buys a new car. Now, so in a conditional sentence we have two parts. We have the condition and the result, and it's normally divided by a comma. In English, if we start a conditional sentence with if, after the first clause, the condition clause, we use a comma. And in the second clause, we finish the sentence with a full stop. Now, in both parts of the sentence, what we use is a present tense. So if a person wins the lottery, he or she buys a new car. Now, what's important here is to understand what a zero conditional is talking about. In fact, it's talking about general truths in life, things which are always true and are normally true. It can also be used for scientific facts or rules and laws. For example, if you mix blue paint and yellow paint, you get green paint. That's a zero conditional. If you eat lots of food, you become fat. Now, when I'm using these sentences and I'm using you, I don't mean specifically you. What I'm talking about is you people in general, what we call the generic you. So that is a zero conditional sentence. We have present tense in the first part of the sentence and a present tense in the second part of the sentence. So we should remember that. It could also be present perfect. So, for example, I could say, if I have eaten lunch, I usually have a sleep. Okay? I could also use in that sentence, after I have eaten lunch or when I have eaten lunch, I usually have a sleep. Okay, so those are zero conditional sentences. Now, I hope you understand that principle. Now, I'm going to move on to the first conditional using the same idea of the lottery ticket. Okay, so first conditional. So I've written a sentence here on the board, and the sentence says, if I win the lottery, I will buy a new car. Now, this sentence is very specific. It's specific about me. It's not something in general. It's not a general truth. It is something specific for me buying the ticket. Now, if I win the lottery, I will buy a new car, suggests in English that I have an expectation that I will in fact win the lottery. And I'll explain that why in the second conditional, but bear with me a moment. So in a first conditional, what we use is, we use a present tense in the first part of the sentence, the condition, if I win the lottery. And in the second part of the sentence, we use will plus infinitive. So, if I win the lottery, I will buy a new car. Now, that is a nice first conditional example. And if I buy a new car, I will drive it every day. And if I drive it every day, I will crash it. No, that's not true. But there's just an example of a possible conditional or first conditional sentence. What else can I tell you? Again, we could use a present continuous form here or a present perfect form. It is possible. And will could be changed to another type of verb, which is less certain. So it could be, if I win the lottery, I might buy a new car. If we had a question in the first conditional, it would be something like this. What will you do if you win the lottery? Answer: I will buy a new car if I win the lottery, which is the same as if I win the lottery, I will buy a new car. So what we can do in English is we can reverse the sentence. I could start with, I will buy a new car if I win the lottery. But if we start with if, we use a comma in the sentence there. And in speech, that comma is represented by a pause, a short pause like this. If I win the lottery, I will buy a new car. But if we start here, there is no pause in the sentence. And it would sound like this: I will buy a new car if I win the lottery. Do you understand? So we can reverse the sentence. So there's my example of the first conditional sentence. Okay? I'm going to go and play tennis this afternoon, but if it rains, I will not play. That's the first conditional. If I am hungry later, I will eat some chocolate. Maybe unhealthy, but it's possible. That is a first conditional. If you study well and learn this English, you will pass your exams. Another example of a first conditional. Okay, got it? I hope so. So if you have any questions, please write them below this video to me here on YouTube. Now I'd like to move on to the second conditional. So the second conditional sentence example I have on the board. If I won the lottery, I would buy a new car. That is a perfect example of a second conditional. The reason I would use a second conditional here is because I don't expect to win the lottery. It is something I think is highly unlikely. It is improbable. It is hypothetical, or put it another way, an unreal situation. So what we do here in English when we create a second conditional is, in the condition clause we use a past tense. If I won the lottery, and then in the second part of the sentence we use would plus infinitive. If I won the lottery, I would buy a new car. And there is a good example of it, isn't it? Okay, that is the second conditional. I could also say, if I were 50 centimeters taller, I would play basketball. Yeah, could be. I'm only 1.80 meters. I'm not 2.30 meters. But if I were 50 centimeters taller, I would play basketball. But what that means is, I'm not taller and I don't play basketball. Do you understand the meaning? Do you understand the concept of second conditionals? Because it's really important. Once you get to B2 level in English and above, you've got to understand these questions. Now, or this principle. Now, questions in this form are going to come up in exams. So they would be things like, what would you do if you lost your mobile phone? What would you do if you won €1 million? What would you do if you failed your exams? Okay, they are all questions in the second conditional. And they ask for hypothetical questions. They're asking a hypothetical question. And they're asking you, if this happened, what would you do? It doesn't mean it will happen. It's just an idea. It's trying to explore your thoughts and ideas. So in exams, they like to ask this type of question. We could also use a different question word or question phrase. We could say, for example, if you could go to any country in the world, which country would you go to and why? That is a typical B2 level, C1 level, C2 level exam question. And I'll repeat it. If you could go to any country in the world, which country would you go to and why? Okay? Now you've got to understand that. When you answer the question, you should say, in my recommendation is, if I could visit any country in the world, I would visit Britain because I would like to improve my English. Perfect answer. I've given it to you. That's what you need to do when you speak English and you want to use conditional sentences, either in a statement form or a question form or an answer form. You've got to understand this. So don't be confused. When somebody uses a past tense in a conditional, they're not talking about the past. Okay? Be very careful. So I'm now talking about the third conditional, and what I think is technically the most difficult one because it uses a lot of verbs. So this is my example sentence, again relating to the lottery. There's my lottery ticket, look. I didn't win. I didn't win the lottery. Sad, isn't it? But if I had won the lottery, I would have bought a new car. Now this conditional talks about the past. Clearly the past. Okay? And how we know this from the sentence is because in the condition we use the verb had. So if I had won the lottery, okay, had won, that looks a little bit like past perfect tense. And it functions, okay, or it's put together in a similar way. If I had won the lottery, I would have, and then past participle, I would have bought a new car. Okay? That is my sentence. But what we know from this is, when I say it, that I didn't win the lottery. The lottery was yesterday and I didn't win it. And I didn't buy a new car. I haven't got a new car. So this conditional talks about things in the past which didn't happen or didn't happen the way we wanted them. So why do we use them? Well, we use them for speculation about the past. So, for example, I'm talking to a student who failed his exams, and he says to me, if I had passed my exams, I would have got a good job. But at the moment, he doesn't have a good job because he didn't pass his exams. Okay? That is a third conditional sentence. Can we turn it into a question? Yeah, we could. We could say, what would you have done if you had won the lottery? And I would say, if I had won the lottery, I would have bought a new car. Or I could say to you as a student, and I'm talking about the past, you passed your exams a couple of months ago, but I want to know what the situation would have been if you failed. So my question is, what would you have done if you had failed your exams? And you say, well, if I had failed my exams, I would have taken the exams again. I would have resat them. Yeah, that's a possibility. So now we have all together the four conditionals. Okay, 0, first, second, and third. And I'm going to write them on the board again. And I'm going to leave that there for a moment so you can see them. And I'm going to say them again. So in summary, this is it. I've got it all written on the board. So let's start again with the 0 conditional. The 0 conditional. If a person wins the lottery, he buys a new car. Okay, present tense here. Wins, present tense here. The first conditional. If I win the lottery, I will buy a new car. I'm talking about on a specific occasion in the future, me. Okay, if I win, present tense here, future with will plus infinitive there. Okay, the second conditional, an unreal situation, something I don't expect to happen, it's highly unlikely. If I won the lottery, past tense there, I would buy a new car. Would plus infinitive. Okay, if I won the lottery, I would buy a new car. But I don't expect to win it. Okay, 1 in 15 million chance, I don't think it will be me. And the last one, the third conditional, is talking about the past. If I had won the lottery, similar to past perfect, if I had won the lottery, similar to past perfect, I would have bought a new car. 3 verbs together. That's difficult. That is difficult. So there it is. In all its glory, the 0, the first, the second, and the third conditional in English, demonstrated by the lottery. You may never do the lottery, and I don't mind if you don't, but I just want you to understand the theory of how we use conditional sentences in English. Because you can use these ideas, this method, to talk about anything in life, absolutely anything. Okay? So I'm sure you'll have some questions about conditionals. They're not easy. You have to practice them. But all I can tell you is practice makes perfect. The more you practice, the better you will get. If you have any questions, write them to me below this video in the comments box. I will be happy to answer the questions. And if you like the video, as always, please give it a thumbs up. And please, if you like my videos, recommend them to your friends, family, neighbours, whoever. And I will see you again soon on another video. Goodbye.